Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our listeners across this great country of ours and across the globe. Welcome to another edition of Focus with Ron Frierson. I am your host, Mr. Ron Frierson. I am here today alone. One of my brothers and one of my best friends, Woody Wilson, is out today. I don't know where he is. No, I think he's up in the Bay. He's in Oakland today. So Woody, have one on for me, and we'll see you when you get back. You'll be missed. Hey, this has been one heck of a week. Now, last week, I don't know if you guys realized, but I pre-taped last week's show on Wednesday because I flew home to Michigan to see my family, which is where I'm from. Shout out to Saginaw, Michigan. Shout out to Flint, Michigan. Shout out to Detroit. I was in Saginaw spending time with the people who are most important to me, including my wonderful grandmother. Love you, Grandma. I know you're listening. And guys, a lot has happened. So that's why last week I couldn't take your live calls because it was a tape show. This week it's different, obviously. And let me give you the phone number. The phone number is 323-843-2826. Again, 323-843-2826. So what a difference a week makes. Last week, Friday, you thought the world was on fire and everything was gloomy. And this week, after the Democratic convention, you think there's hope and optimism. So I guess depending on how you feel about the current, whatever your political slant is, I should say, that to a large extent will dictate how you feel about each convention. I always, because some of the people that are closest to me are Republican, and because I care for them and respect them so much, I listen to the Republican side, and I try to be as non-judgmental and as objective as humanly possible. And then because I do have a Democratic, more liberal slant on my own personal life, I am not a card-carrying Democrat to the point where I agree with everything a Democrat does. And that's why I accept all sides. And also it's just my nature to be objective. It's my nature to be polite and courteous. And it's also my nature not to think that I know all the answers. And anyone who claims they know all the answers, you should be aware of them. So if you are even a Trump supporter, you're very welcome to call the show. And I guarantee you will be listened to. I guarantee your perspective will be respected on this show. So I look at and juxtapose both of these conventions, and I got to tell you, in my opinion, all that being said about my objectivity, I think that the optimist in me definitely thinks that the Democrats had a better convention, and I think that even some Republicans think so, because we need a strong Republican Party. I want a strong Republican Party. I want to be able to give real thought and consideration to both parties before I start to choose up and down the ticket. I really want that. But I have to tell you that the state of the current Republican Party really makes that difficult, if not impossible. I don't even think that Ronald Reagan would be a true blue Republican these days because it's gone so far to the right. And I think it's partly our fault. It's our fault that we allow that great party, which was the party of Lincoln until civil rights came up, and then it switched over to the old Dixiecrats, became Republicans, and then the Democrats, which were formerly for slavery, came to the more freedom, liberal side of progressive side of the political landscape. Before then, you would think that each side had a particular set of ideas, but they were all pushing the country forward. Not that one side would try to hold certain things back. And when you think of the actual term conservative, I think that you want to conserve the actual spirit of what it means to be American. And the spirit of being American, in my opinion, was something that, even though I disagree with them almost completely politically, but that spirit of optimism that Ronald Reagan put forward, that's valuable, because part of being American is being aspirational, thinking that our best days are ahead of us. And I didn't get much of that from the Republican convention. And I got a lot of stuff that was said that was really offensive to me in regards to me being a minority. And I know that other ethnic groups, if these same sort of things were to be said about other ethnicities, then they would actually get themselves into, they would be offended as well. If you're Latino or you're African American, some of the things that were said, and it doesn't matter if it's coming out of an African American's mouth. I mean, you can always find one. One thing about us, and I've said it before, and just about any minority group, is that we're the same as a majority group. There are certain places that if you put a Latino person in certain countries, they will be the majority, and in certain places, like here, they would be a minority. There are certain places on this planet that if you put in a white person, they're going to be a minority, and another ethnicity would be a majority. It all depends. But in this country, if you are a minority, the things that were said, even if it came from another minority's mouth, some of them are really off base. But of course, to further the narrative, you will always find one. We are not monolithic in regards to our thought. Not all black people think the same, and I love that. I don't want anyone to think that we're all the same, because we are not. We're definitely not. And so, but there are cultural truths that come along with whatever culture. In regards to your cultural history, there are universal truths. In regards to things like, let's say, slavery and the remnants of what happened in slavery, that's a truth. You can't deny that. What happened in the Holocaust, that's a truth. You can't deny it. Whether or not there's institutional racism, it's a truth. You can't deny it. So rather than focusing on the obvious ill, let's focus on trying to move forward beyond it, because I think it's better for our country to do so. And I don't think that Donald Trump's message is purely Republican, because I think Republicans want the same thing. There are always going to be those elements in there that don't understand what it is to be conservative, and they will actually try to conserve the bad parts of our culture rather than conserving the actual spirit of equality and liberty. It's different. It's different. And you find some of those guys, and Trump is pretty much antithetical to everything that we believe in that regards, and I think pretty much antithetical to the actual true Republican Party. Now, I go on that rant because, again, I want to, at some point in my life, look at both sides of the ticket and have a real tough decision to make in regards to who I'm going to vote for, whether or not it's a Democrat or Republican, because I don't think that any one party should have a dominant sort of appeal to one group. I want to have options. We have zero options. So for those guys that think that there's a real choice between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, you're absolutely wrong. I think that the clear choice from everything that's happening, if you are truly objective, Hillary's a no-brainer. If you're truly objective, if you take your political slant out of it and just look at temperament, she said something in her speech last night in regards to, if you can be baited by a tweet and you need to go off on a rant because someone tweeted something negatively about you and you're just going off on a rant, then you're probably not of the temperament to have control of nuclear weapons. If you are careless enough with your words to even imply, joking or not, that somehow another foreign government should hack into our computer systems, or divulge the fact that they've stolen some of our materials to try to use it to influence an American election, joking or not, you just don't do stuff like that. So again, in regards to objective thinking, whether or not you are a Democrat or Republican, even Republicans, the real Republicans, the Colin Powells, even the Mitt Romneys, or even the Jeb Bushes, even the John Kasichs, they don't even support this guy because he's a loose cannon. So if you are a true Republican, then you ought to be able to recognize when someone is not. Donald Trump is not. I'm going to, and the fact that we're so polarized and there's actually money set up to keep us that way. If you are, and I know it's hard over at Fox News right now. I know it has to be difficult for them because they're really trying to justify backing up this guy. So they're just trying to make Hillary seem so terrible. Well, let's just say Hillary, let's just say hypothetically speaking, that she would be a terrible president. We've had bad presidents in the past. It's a difference between having a bad president and having a dangerous president. Having a dangerous president with the power that comes along with that office, it's not something we can handle. So we need to just squash that. And for me, on a personal note, I am so proud of this country that we have finally nominated a woman to be the president of the United States. I am so proud of it because I think that I'm Christian and I believe in God and I respect our religions, but I'm Christian and I believe in Jesus and God. And I think that in a certain way, even for a liberal progressive like me, I do think that we are ordained as a special country because I think despite the faults that our forefathers had in regards to slaveholders and things of that sort and their own personal biases and prejudices, I think they created something that was greater than themselves, something that would eventually evolve to the point where we can have an African, although it's 240 something years later, that we can have an African-American president and then have a woman president. I love the day when we have a Latino president, we have a Jewish president, or even, God forbid, I shouldn't say God forbid because that is totally not what I mean, but hopefully one day we will have a Muslim president. I hope that we get to the point where we are so beyond tribalism and we allow that equality and justice to rule the day so that it doesn't matter what race, ethnicity, or gender you are. If you have the brains and if you have the spirit and the heart, that you could also lead this country as long as you're taking everyone with you. That's what America is. I'm going to play a little bit of the first significant speech, I should say, of the convention, the DNC, and that was Michelle Obama's speech, because this is putting this entire thing in a historical context. And if you believe that, we are destined to be the greatest country on earth, it's because of things like this. And then what I'm going to show you is that twisted thinking that sometimes comes from other mindsets that totally miss the point. And that's going to come from Bill O'Reilly. So first things first, let's play, Jarvis, that clip from Michelle Obama from the DNC speech. Okay.
That is the story of this country, the story that has brought me to this stage tonight, the story of generations of people who felt the lash of bondage, the shame of servitude, the sting of segregation, but who kept on striving and hoping and doing what needed to be done so that today I wake up every morning in a house that was built by slaves. And I watch my daughters, two beautiful, intelligent black young women, playing with their dogs on the White House lawn. And because of Hillary Clinton, my daughters and all our sons and daughters now take for granted that a woman can be president of the United States. So look.
That's amazing to me. That touches me, and that's amazing to me. And you don't have to be African American to be moved by that. All you have to do is be an American citizen and understand your history, understand where our country has come from. Okay. And we also have to take into account the fact that how young this country is. There are other places on the planet that still have such deep tribal rifts that what has happened in this country in less than 300 years would probably never happen in some of those other countries. But because of how we are and how exceptional we are, this type of thing can happen here. So we see the point of what she's saying about how the country has progressed. Yes, we still have a lot of work to do, but that's part of what makes us us, is that we are open and willing to do the work. But you're going to have that other side that totally misses the point. Cue in my man Bill O'Reilly. Poor Bill. Go ahead and play that, Jarvis.
As we mentioned, Talking Points memo, Michelle Obama referenced slaves building the White House and referring to the evolution of America in a positive way. It was a positive comment. The history behind her remark is fascinating. George Washington selected the site in 1791 and has presently laid the cornerstone in 1792. Washington was then running the country out of Philadelphia. Slaves did participate in the construction of the White House. Records show about 400 payments made to slave masters between 795 and 1801. In addition, free blacks, whites, and immigrants also worked on the massive building. There were no illegal immigrants at that time. If you could make it here, you could stay here. In 1800, President John Adams took up residence in what was then called the Executive Mansion. It was only later on they named it the White House. But Adams was in there with Abigail, and they were still hammering nails. The construction was still going on. Slaves that worked there were well fed and had decent lodgings provided by the government, which stopped hiring slave labor in 1802. However, the feds did not forbid subcontractors from using slave labor. So Michelle Obama is essentially correct in citing slaves as builders of the White House, but there were others working as well. Got it all? There will be a quiz. Just put the quiz, and I'll come to your mailbox. Factor tip of the.
Yeah, he said that. I mean, come on now. Come on, Bill. I mean, this, sometimes if you're wrong, you're just wrong. If there's something, and Bill himself didn't own slaves. So the simple fact that he somehow felt the need to try to diminish the guilt that comes along with it, that may or may not, I don't think that white people should be guilty at this point themselves individually about slavery, because no one alive now were slave holders. What we can do is acknowledge that it happened and be sure that the mentality that leads to that superiority complex and maybe somehow diminishing the value of others through an institutional slavery, we can fix that still, because that still is pervasive. But the actual act of being a slave owner, you don't have to be guilty for that. You just got to be a human now and do what humans do, which is involve your thinking in certain respects. But don't sit here and try to, think about what he said. So one thing he said, there were no illegal immigrants back then. Come on now, Bill. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. We're not talking about illegal immigrants. We're talking about what she was saying was the fact that our country has moved beyond that to the point where we can have African Americans and women in the White House, other than being servants. He said, not everyone were slaves. No, I'm sure that they didn't have slaves as architects. They didn't have the slaves, actually, writing up the schematics or figuring out the plumbing or the drywall. They didn't do all of that, obviously. So that means that we're non-slaves doing that type of work. So technically, it wasn't all slaves, because I don't see the slaves actually being educated to that point where they will allow them to do that. So technically, yeah. But believe me, anyone in here who's running business is going to try to get the cheapest labor possible. So anyone that wanted to work on the White House, they could have. So stupid. Anything of any sort of intensive labor that could be used and is cheap labor, which slavery was cheap labor, that's what was used. Unless you were, again, a supervisor or an architect or something of that sort, then you were probably cheap labor. And any businessman or anybody with any sort of common sense understands that. And the fact that Bill would say something like that, it's just beyond me, and he should be smarter than that. And a little salt in the wound in regards to well-fed. My God. How silly and how insensitive and how stupid can you be to say something like that? They were well fed. I could just go off on this forever. And decent lodging. So this is that other side that appeals to the baser instinct of humanity. Someone who's obviously smart in some ways. I'm sure Bill O'Reilly may be brilliant in some ways, but that means he's brilliant in every way. So in some ways, he's probably very smart. In other ways, he's stupid as hell. Because I don't even say that's done. I think that's stupid, and I think that's willful ignorance, or even worse, it's manipulative, because he knows better, but he's talking to someone else who doesn't to try to somehow diminish the fact of what was. So I'm going to leave Bill alone right there, but just juxtapose the two. This show will be replayed on YouTube. You can go to our YouTube channel and check it out anytime. So you can go through and look at that snippet again of what Michelle Obama was saying about the progress of our country, which is a great country. It's greater than any individual man. It's greater than anyone that's come before us. And that's why it's so great. The idea of America is what makes us who we are. And then you juxtapose that, reconcile that with the ignorance that came out of Bill O'Reilly's mouth. But because someone wants to feel, some people, believe it or not, want to feel better about whatever, they decide to latch onto what Bill O'Reilly said and try to take it literal and pick it apart. It's stupid. So that's one thing that bothered me. And it bothers me because if we had the odds of it happening is slim to none, but if we had a really objective, non-profit-driven media, then perhaps some of these things wouldn't happen. Because every media group, just like any TV show, they have a target audience. And if you get a target audience and that audience is dedicated to you and your channel, then you need to say what it takes to keep that audience tuned in to you. And I'm sorry to say that most of us Americans, as great as we are, some of us still only listen to things that we agree with, so it can reinforce our thinking. It's just the way it is. And sometimes that's human nature. Everyone wants affirmation, but affirmation in many cases, if it comes in the wrong through the wrong direction, it can actually stifle growth. You need to be challenged. You need to be challenged intellectually. All of us need to be pushed out of our comfort zones from time to time. And this is one of those things that for us to progress as a civilization, as a country, as a society, sometimes being pushed out of our comfort zones is necessary. And especially if you have to deal with the stupid thinking that comes along with that. So if you are a Democrat and all you watch is MSNBC, you don't ever turn on Fox, then you should probably turn on Fox. If you are a Republican and all you watch is Fox, then you maybe should turn it on to CNN or to MSNBC to just see what's going on. See if you can understand the other's point of view. See if there's anything. But what I've always said is that reading is the best, because when you are for profit, you only have a period of time. They're only going to show you what they want to show you because they are limited on time, because they have to put advertising in there. And you can't really, your eyes can only absorb so much. That's why the book is always better than the movie. The reason why books are always better than the movie, because your brain can process things through reading a lot faster, and you can see other things. You can skip from this paragraph to that paragraph. But if you're watching something, you're subject to their time, their visual medium, and things in many cases have to move slowly. You have to look at, writers write, this is what they do. So when they write things, they have to be concise with the words. They have to be descriptive with the words. When humans are talking and all you speaking to them is talking, there's so much nuance there because they're talking. If I say high, even the word high can mean distance, high, like in level. High can mean like high in state of mind. Maybe someone smokes something there, high. High can mean like hi, hello. So depending when you're speaking to someone in that regard, you can sometimes take words or phrases out of context, because and some of you guys in relationships know what I mean. You guys ever sent someone a text message and you were meaning one thing, but they took it another way because the words you use, maybe you didn't put an exclamation point or you didn't put a smiley face, so now they took it an entirely different way. Sometimes that happens in visual medium as well. So because of that, again, the for-profit media on television is not always the best way to absorb things in the right, proper context. So pick up a newspaper. As you're watching me, still pick up a newspaper. So that, all that being said, these are the things that happen when you are an uninformed public and all you do is watch the TV and you're slanted in a certain direction. Now, one of the great things that I heard this week during the Democratic convention was it was a complete rebuttal to Mr. Trump's what they call Muslim ban, which he's backed off on. And with Donald, I can see Donald sometimes putting his foot in his mouth. And because he does a lot of business in the Middle East, maybe if I try to give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe he didn't mean all Muslims. Maybe he just meant the refugees, or maybe just meant people from different certain countries. And I have very close friends of mine that I respect who think that all we should do is bring over just the women and children because it's the men that pose the problems. Well, we all know that there have been female suicide bombers for that, and including one of the Islamists that were in San Bernardino. And then also the bigger point is that you will still be breaking up families. You can't just bring just the women and children over here and then break up families like that. So all of his stuff that he says in regards to that is totally off base, for one, and for two, it's not practical for the reasons I just mentioned. But there was a man that spoke during the convention, and he was the father of a slain soldier who died in Iraq almost 10 years ago, I think. And there's a portion of his speech that really resonated with me, because you have to think about it. We've had people of the Muslim faith here before 9/11. Before September 1st, 2001, we still have Muslims. They've always been here. They've always been part of us. They've always been part of us. Don't think that we just now have Muslims in the United States after September 11th and now they're all just some sort of bogeyman that is walking around here trying to do something bad. That is not reality, not even close. And don't let anyone make you feel that way because of what's happened in other parts of the world. That's not what it is. So what Donald Trump said was not only wrong, it was anti-American, because they were here since the beginning of the country as well. Okay? Same way as Jewish people, they've been here for forever. This has been a melting pot from the beginning. Okay? So I want to play a little bit of Mr. Khizr Khan's speech that he gave to the DNC, and it was poignant and it was right on point. Jarvis, could you play that for us?
You're asking Americans to trust you with their future. Let me ask you, have you even read the United States Constitution? I will gladly lend you my copy. In this document, look for the words liberty and equal protection of law. Have you ever been to Arlington Cemetery? Go look at the graves of brave patriots who died defending the United States of America. You will see all faiths, genders, and ethnicities. You have sacrificed nothing and no one. Trump.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And it's so true. If we take our heads out of the bubble and remember that we're dealing with people, and remember where you are, remember who we are at our essence and who we are at our core. And this we have our own original sin. Our own original sin is slavery. And we're dealing with the vestiges of that to this day, and we're going to get that right too, hopefully within my lifetime. But we're going to get it right because it all comes in the hearts of men. And if a man changes his heart, and then we change the institutional things that come along with it and fix it, which I think we're in the process of, and that's why we're bleeding, and we're going to stop the bleeding, and we're going to patch it up, and it's going to heal. It's taken a long time, but we've made progress, obviously. Who we are is not a country that bans people based on religion or ethnicity or any other sort of tribal restrictions that we put on you. We basically just don't want terrorists, but who does? But you can't paint 1.6 billion people as terrorists. It's so stupid. It's so stupid and it's so ignorant. And the fact that, we will allow our fear to dictate that. Now, I get it. I get it with the security concerns. We live in Los Angeles, and in L.A., the weather out here is terribly hot and muggy, and we love to be outside, especially at nighttime. We love to be outside. I sit outside at restaurants. It's a very outdoors culture. It's a outdoorsy type of place. We have places here that I frequent, like the Grove or 3rd Street Promenade and all these really cool places. And if something happened, God forbid, it would be a shock to our systems. So, am I concerned about security? Absolutely. Absolutely, as we should be. But I think that the people in Israel, they have it down. We can learn a lot from them. They deal with stuff all the time, but they're still outside at their outdoor cafes. My second circuit family is Israeli, and they are they're always telling me I need to go. My parents go to Tel Aviv. They tell me I should go to Tel Aviv, and it's like a Mediterranean city, and how they have the outdoor cafes and people are out living their lives. And I was thinking to myself, despite all of the things that go on in regards, they live. They just live. They don't live in fear. They're vigilant. They pay attention. They notice things, but they don't live in fear. America, we're no different. We need to be vigilant. We need to pay attention to things. We need to be sure that we stomp out certain things whenever it raises its ugly head, but we will not live in fear, and that's just not who we are. And we shouldn't allow some reality television person to swoop in and think that he's going to, for one, stir up all the anxiety and fear because of what's going on in the world, and use that to try to appeal to our baser instinct. It's just not cool. And so hopefully we're bigger and better than that. So also during the convention last week, we were introduced to Tim Kaine, the former senator or governor out of Virginia, who's Hillary Clinton's vice presidential pick. And I look at Tim Kaine and Hillary, and I see how they could work together. Now remember, guys, I'm for Hillary 1,000%, and I'm not a big Hillary fan, but I am for her. And one of the main reasons I am for her is I must admit is Donald. I just don't think he's up for the task. And then for two, I am proud that we have a woman. I am so proud and happy that we have a woman that's the nominee for a party and perhaps the president, because I like progress. I like progress. I've always liked progress, even if it's uncomfortable for some people. Humans are humans are humans. It sounds like we have a caller that's calling in. And caller, thank you for calling in. Can I have your name and the city you're calling in from?
Hey, my brother, this is Jaway calling from Los Angeles.
Jaway, how are you?
How you? I'm good, brother. It's in this traffic. You want to pick up the little one?
Okay.
You
okay.
know? Yeah, man. How you doing?
I'm
good?
I'm doing good. The show is doing well. I'm doing good. I'm glad you called in, brother.
Oh, man. Thank you. You're welcome, man. I'm listening to you, and I just wanted to comment, first, Bill O'Reilly, man. I mean, I don't know why we even have any type of expectations for the dude.
Yeah.
You know, he's just a wrong person. You know, like you said, there's some things you don't need to address. And then, you know, right in line, parallel to, you know, Donald Trump and his concept and what he's running his platform on, is because these people together have no substance. They have nothing to talk about, yet they're all about themselves. And they think they are God's gift to, you know, to man. So what to do, they prey on the human being's soft spot, the average person's soft spot. And as we know, bullies is based on fear. And, you know, this is the perfect time to do that because what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
So if I have something real to talk about, I will talk about that. I won't talk about anything else but that, what matters. But if I don't, I'm definitely going to look for something that will bring me attention at the same time and make me feel I'm so important while making other people feel like crap. You know, so, you know, we shouldn't expect anything more from those people. And if the fact that they have platforms is even a bigger issue.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, America, like you said, we are better together. We are better as a community, as a unit, you know, and things will get better, but we'll always have one or two of these people. And I don't think we should be expecting any more from them. I think it's the fact that we'll have expectations, some form of expectation from them. That creates that disappointment or that need to even hear anything from them.
That's right.
So that's just my take on it.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for calling as always. All right.
You're welcome, my brother.
That was,
God bless you, man.
God bless you, too. That was Jaway calling in from Los Angeles, my brother Jaway. And, again, guys, I have friends, you know, friends that I love that are Trump supporters. I don't understand it. But the thing is, I said that the thing that makes Trump dangerous is the fact that he sprinkles in things that make sense. But you have to look at the overall huge picture. It's certain things that even I agree, like in regards to NAFTA. I'm from Michigan, which is a Rust Belt state. And I don't think NAFTA was the greatest trade deal for my state or our neighboring states, the states that manufacture things. And I don't think that was the best. So he plugs into that. Again, some people who think that illegal immigration is just the worst thing ever, because they know for certain that they want to go and pick the lettuce. And so because they want those jobs so bad, they don't think that an illegal immigrant should be able to do it. Or at the same time, they don't want to have to if they weren't illegal, then they may have to pay them a little bit more to wash the dishes in the restaurant. They don't want to have to do that. So he speaks to certain things that certain people may agree with. Okay, I actually agree with some of the trade deals. I do. I am not a fan of some of the trade deals. Understand that sometimes trade is necessary. So whatever that little bit and piece that you may agree with them on, and then on top of that, maybe you have been traditionally a Republican, and so you think that, okay, I'm going to vote Republican no matter who the nominee is. And on top of that, I like what he says about this. Or there's sometimes certain other little reasons where you just think that the Democrats as a whole are, you know, they only want to deal with people that's this, and I want to be this, and the Democrats don't allow for this. But when you look at the history, people, for the most part, and the economy, if you think back on it, has typically been stronger in years where Democrats were in office. For the longest time, the economy is usually stronger. Not to say that it's always booming, but it's usually stronger under Democrats. And there's an old adage that says, if you want to live like a Republican, vote Democrat. And that's, for the most part, is true. Now, but all that being said, Donald is neither. If you are a true Republican, you believe in Republican principles, Donald's not your guy. If you are someone who truly cares about national security and you care about what happens with our military, then Donald's not your guy. The reason why he's not your guy in that regards is because he can't control his mouth. He speaks too impulsively. I've said this before on the show. One thing I like about President Obama is that he thinks, and caller, could you hold on just a second? I'm going to make this point. One thing I like about President Obama is the fact that when he speaks, he kind of stops in the middle of, like the way I speak when I speak with my parents. It's because I have to be careful what I say. I can't slip and curse or say anything like that. So I'm like President Obama when I speak to my parents. I speak slowly and deliberately, and there's a reason for that. And President Obama's reason is that he knows that presidents' words somehow become policy. People across the globe listens to what they say. It's not just the people in the room. It's people across the globe. And things happen based on a president's word. And if you have a president that doesn't think before he speaks, I remember Obama got in trouble about the red line in regards to Syria, how he said if Syria crosses this red line, we're going to do this. And he didn't do it. And he's been dogged by the right for not following up with his word. That was one time. So just think about if we had a president that was always saying something and saying crazy stuff, and how we'd be viewed around the world, how dangerous that would be for our military, how dangerous that would be for our national security apparatus. He's just not the one. I'm sorry. Caller, are you still there?
How are you?
Hi, caller. I'm sorry. I didn't get your name. Can I have your name and the city you're calling in from, please?
Yeah, this is Roxy calling from Los Angeles, California.
Hi, Roxy. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I love this dialogue that we have going on, which I think I've seen a lot among my friends, and because we are all so politically aware. So I want to get your thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
So in the light of coming out of the Republican National Convention, coming out of the Democratic National Convention, we still have people that are sitting on the fence. And I think that there could be a lot of your listeners who are in that same position as well, So one of the things that I find very frustrating, my position, my family is highly Democratic. I was raised as a Democrat, but I tend to be a little bit more on the moderate side rather than leaning to the liberal left. And so I have agreed with Republicans along the way and have actually voted for Republicans back when I was living in New York State, in New York City. But we have people who are on the fence right now who are going towards the Green Party, going towards the Independent Party because they didn't like anything that was said in, let's say, the Trump circus last week or the Democratic circus of this week. A lot of Bernie supporters who won't come on board. And I think this is one of the most dangerous times to be like that, because this is not an election that is like any other that we have ever seen. There are those of us who are below the age of 40 who don't even know what discrimination truly is or what it is to see people that we care about being prosecuted in a way because of the color of their skin, their creed, their race, religion. And that can possibly happen again with Trump in office. My question is, what do you advise to people who are on the fence? Women particularly, we will lose our rights. Pence and Trump said they will completely abolish Roe versus Wade. They said this within the last 24 to 48 hours. This is not anything to joke with. So what are your thoughts, or what would be your words to people who are on the fence now that we've been through the entire conventions and we're going forward?
Thank you, Roxy, and thank you for calling in. And I always appreciate your voice, and I appreciate you listening.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And that was Roxy calling in from Los Angeles. My take is this, is that we have to understand the inner workings of our political system. And the inner workings right now, the infrastructure is built towards a two-party system. So even if we had an independent president, because that independent president would have to work with a Republican or Democratic Congress, then that can pose issues. Also up and down the ticket, including the local elections, state legislatures, they're still going to be Democrat or Republican, not independent. So that means that even if someone came in thinking that they were going to be independent, because of the inner workings and the infrastructure, they would have to sway one side or the other, or else they wouldn't have the political apparatus available to them to get anything done. So, but all that being said, I think that part of her question was to get off the fence. You have to weigh what's important to you, okay? Now, if what's important to you is continuity of government, and with the hope that an elected official would take our country into a certain trajectory that's positive for all of us and all of our society and for our culture to move forward, then you have to pick those types of candidates that can more closely take you in that area. I think one of the best things for Hillary Clinton, it was Bernie Sanders, to fight for the things that took the trajectory just a little bit left, because the way it's going as corporatist, it's maybe not benefiting all of our country, and that's why you get all these different types of again, tribalism rises up. When there's not true economic opportunity, it kind of manifests itself in social areas, because there's a human tendency to get more tribal as you see less opportunities, because humans kind of gravitate towards what makes them comfortable. So, I mean, let's just take our city for a matter. If you are of a certain economic strata, then you tend to have a more diverse life. If you're more educated, you tend to have a more diverse life. You have more diverse friends. You have more diverse inner circle, maybe a school system. And then once you start to go down the economic strata, you'll see that, a certain segment of the population will live in this area, a certain segment of the population will live in that area, and things start to become more tribal. And so if you want a country that we're all going to truly be, have the opportunity, not everyone's going to be great, but to have the opportunity, then there's certain things that need to be in order. And it seems like those things that take us more into that trajectory at this point tend to be on the left, because it's human nature for everyone to want to be included, unless you're the one that's already made it and now you're in protectionist mode. If you're in protectionist mode and you just want to protect just what you have and accumulate what you have, then you have a certain mindset. If you are, and it's all dependent on the person. So point is that common sense is going to rule this election, in my view. To simplify everything I just said, because I always go off on a tangent, that's just what I do. But to simplify what it is goes back to what I said earlier. You can choose in this election between what could potentially be, at the worst, a bad presidency. Let's just say if Hillary Clinton were elected, the worst she would be a bad president. And trust me, it would be all over her, any mistake she made. And she cares about that. Or you can choose someone who would be a dangerous president who doesn't give a damn what you think. Think about it. So you can choose danger or bad. And someone that tends not to be able to control himself and control his mouth, or someone who's ultra careful. Because it's my life, or the life of my future children, or the trajectory of my loved ones and my neighbors' country going in a certain direction, I would rather them be in the hands of someone who's cautious and has the potential of being bad, rather than someone who's reckless and has the potential of being dangerous. Think about that. Lastly, Green Party, it's not viable. It's just not viable at this point to have a real third-party candidate, which would be good at some point in the future. It's just the infrastructure is not set up for it. The fundraising capabilities aren't set up for it. The infrastructure is not set up for it. And all you would do, depending on that third party, ask Ross Perot, what he did in pulling away votes. Ask Ralph Nader on what he did in pulling away votes. It's just not viable. It's a zero-sum game, and a third party would just take away from what's the two dominant electorate pools. So, I want to play one last bit of footage from the convention, and this footage is of President Obama. Just play that really quick, Jarvis, and I'm going to talk about it at the end.
Typical election. It's not just a choice between parties or policies, the usual debates between left and right. This is a more fundamental choice about who we are as a people, and whether we stay true to this great American experiment in self-government, Look, we Democrats have always had plenty of differences with the Republican Party. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's precisely this contest of ideas that pushes our country forward. But what we heard in Cleveland last week wasn't particularly Republican, and it sure wasn't conservative. What we heard was a deeply pessimistic vision of a country where we turn against each other and turn away from the rest of the world. There were no serious solutions to pressing problems, just the fanning of resentment and blame and anger and hate. And that is not the America I know. The America I know is full of courage and optimism and ingenuity. The America I know is decent and generous.
Listen, we're going to miss him. I put it on my Facebook post, we're going to miss him. We may not see it now, and I think that he's going to go down in history as one of the great presidents. If you think about the turbulent times we've been in, and I remember saying this before, some of the people now that may disagree with certain things, because I don't agree with everything. I don't agree with what happened in Syria. But if you think about it and what he helped us come through, and zero scandal in regards to him. Zero scandal. And I'm not going to go back over the scandals that's happened in other presidents' tenures in office in their administrations, but he has been a great representation of us on this planet, on the world stage. And although we have some people that just don't like him for whatever reason, they'll think he's the best manager. I've heard all the stuff. And all I have to do is compare him to his predecessor. It's a no-brainer. Compare him to his predecessor. Don't compare him to perfect, but next to his predecessor, he's damn near. A family man, a great role model, and he will be missed. And trust me when I tell you, the first African-American president was going to have to go through the most. He's the only person that can be criticized for being a Reverend Wright's Christian church for 20 years and the stuff that Reverend Wright was saying in his Christian church, and then at the same time be told that he was Muslim. And there's nothing wrong with being Muslim, but you can't be Muslim sitting in a Christian church for 20 years. It makes no sense. But the fact that he had stuff coming at him since then didn't really matter. They just had to say what they needed to say. There's things that it's a whole lot, and we don't need to go through that. I only have like maybe 3 minutes left, and I want to close off with giving you a snippet of Hillary Clinton. I'm proud of us that we nominated a woman, and we have the potential of having a woman being the first president of the United States, the first female president of the United States. It's a beautiful thing. Get out there and vote for her, in my opinion. Vote, period. Like I said, I have some friends and loved ones who are Trump fans. I love you anyway. I don't understand it, but some things I'm just not meant to understand. But listen to her. Understand that you're choosing between what is potentially bad, or it could be great, or what could be dangerous, and doesn't give a damn that he's dangerous, and his own party doesn't want him. You got to think about that. So we're going to close off with Hillary speaking. Thank you again for listening to Focus with Ron Frierson. I'm your host, Ron Frierson, and let's close it off with Hillary. Let's do that. Hopefully the next president of the United States. Thank you, guys.
Now, Donald Trump says, and this is a quote, "I know more about ISIS than the generals do." No, Donald, you don't. He thinks he knows more than our military because he claimed our armed forces are a disaster. Well, I've had the privilege to work closely with our troops and our veterans for many years, including as a senator on the Armed Services Committee, and I know how wrong he is. Our military is a national treasure. We entrust our Commander-in-Chief to make the hardest decisions our nation faces.